Okay, so you've had 10 minutes to work on that unbiased, reliable sources activity. As I said before, I am going to collect that from you on Monday. If you did not finish today, please make sure you wrap it up tonight or over the weekend. If you have questions on that, we can talk about it tomorrow and I can help you through that if you need it. So now, like I said before, we're going to officially start Unit 3. We're going to take some notes on Chapter 4, Key Issue 1. So please put your Chapter 4, Key Issue 1 notes in front of you. And Chapter 4 is all about folk and popular culture. So we're going to start today just by defining the difference between pop and folk culture. Our key question is, where are folk and popular leisure activities distributed? So the first thing on your note sheet is habit and custom. So geographers study how culture influences behavior. And there's a difference between a habit and a custom. A habit is a repetitive act that is performed by an individual, by one person, whereas a custom is a repetitive act that is performed by a group. So for example, a habit would be one college student wearing jeans with colorful patches on them, or one college student wearing jeans that are distressed and have holes in them. Whereas a custom would be all college students from a particular area wearing jeans with colorful patches or wearing jeans with holes in them or jeans that are distressed. So habit is really just kind of one person and their behavior, whereas a custom is a group of people sharing common behavior. So folk versus popular culture. Folk culture tends to be things that are smaller and more local. So examples of folk culture include local culture, local foods, local music, distinctive cultural dress, whereas popular culture is more global and is more widespread. So music on the radio, blue jeans, Converse, Vans, Nike, Netflix, all of those are elements of popular culture. And something can't be folk culture or pop culture if it's a habit, right? That's just one individual doing something. If it becomes a custom, that's when it really starts to become a part of culture. If this is like common behavior shared by a group, that's what moves it into that folk culture or popular culture category. So we're going to talk through some of the differences between folk and popular culture. So the origin of folk culture, we don't necessarily know where folk culture comes from. It has anonymous hearths. So it's possible to have many or multiple hearths, each originating independently in different locations. We have anonymous sources, we have unknown dates, and unidentified originators. We don't know who started this custom or where exactly it came from. It is small, it is local, and we can't pinpoint exactly when it started, where it started, or who started it. Popular culture, on the other hand, tends to be a product of developed countries. So most of the time, our popular culture originates in North America or Europe, and it's often traceable to a specific person or a specific company in a particular place at a particular time. So some clear differences here between our pop and folk culture. For example, the one and only Britney Spears, right? Low-rise jeans and crop top shirts, signature Britney Spears look became an element of popular culture, right? And we can trace these trends back to Britney Spears and maybe even back to this video, the one and only Hit Me Baby One More Time, right? And we know when it happened, we know where it happened, and we know who it came from. That is characteristic of popular culture. That is not characteristic of folk culture. Also, interesting to note that many of these trends are starting to come back now, right? Years later, years after they were popular and after they originated. Okay, another difference between folk and popular culture is in terms of diffusion. Folk culture tends to diffuse on a small scale and diffuses slowly from one location to another, primarily through relocation diffusion, which again is the migration of people, the movement of people from one place to another. They bring their elements of folk culture with them. Popular culture, on the other hand, tends to be transmitted by way of hierarchical diffusion, that one person of power or influence spreads the idea through the rest of the population. So in the example I just gave you, Britney Spears would be your one person of power or influence who is spreading the idea or the trend of crop tops and low-rise jeans. So popular culture in general tends to diffuse rapidly and extensively from hearths or nodes of innovation with the help of modern communications. Cell phones, the internet, TV, all of these things allow for the rapid diffusion of popular culture. They also differ in terms of distribution. So folk culture tends to have small and local distribution. Oftentimes, folk culture is isolated from other cultures because of physical barriers, such as distance or mountain ranges or a desert. But if you have an area that tends to be isolated from other areas, it's more likely that a distinct folk culture is going to develop in those places. Okay, religion, folk religion can be an example of this. If you have like a small and local religion, I think about like animistic religions that are practiced in many small and local cultures in rural areas in Africa, right? That would be an example of a folk culture. Popular culture tends to be widely distributed across many countries with little regard for physical factors. So the principal obstacle to accessing popular culture is lack of income to purchase the material or lack of access to electronic media, right? Popular culture is diffusing through the internet, it's diffusing through TV, through magazines, through social media. If you don't have access to the internet, you really don't have access to popular culture. And if you don't have the income to purchase these material goods that are elements of popular culture, then that's limiting your access as well. So we can kind of analyze popular culture and folk culture through sports and music. So when we're looking at sports originated as an isolated folk custom and diffused like any other folk culture via relocation diffusion. So examples of this: football, the real football, right? What we call soccer in the United States. This originated in England in the 11th century. It started as a small and local custom, and it transformed from folk culture to popular culture in the 1800s when organized clubs were formed in the UK and professional players were hired. Then we see standardized rules and organized professional leagues being established in 1863 in the UK, and this marks the formal transition from a folk sport to a popular sport. And think of just how widespread this sport has become since the 11th century, right? Starting as this small local sport, and now it's so widespread. We see soccer or football, right, all over the world. This is another example of folk culture turning into popular culture. These are children in India playing cricket. So cricket originated in the UK. India was colonized by the British. So via relocation diffusion, those British colonists, they brought cricket to India, and it is now a very popular sport in India today. We can also look at the diffusion of music. So folk music originates anonymously. It is transmitted orally. We see modifications to songs over successive generations to represent changes in conditions. The content of the song centers on events in daily life that are familiar to the majority of people. So oftentimes songs are sung about life cycle events like birth, death, or marriage. Oftentimes we hear songs about environmental features like agriculture or climate or the rains or drought, and the migration of people diffuses the music. But again, folk culture thinks small and local. So it's unlikely, right? Highly unlikely to hear a folk song on the radio. That's just not going to happen. You're going to have to think small and local or visit those small and local places in order to interact with this element of culture, in order to hear this music. In terms of popular music, this is music that is written by specific individuals with the intent of being sold, being performed in front of a paying audience, and making money, right? That is the goal in popular music. Often we see displays of a high degree of technical skill involved in playing the music. These aren't acoustic musicians who are playing drums and singing folk songs, right? We see a lot of technology and a lot of skill going into creating this music and performing this music. And then musicians often have a strong connections with other similar musicians that may span the globe. Whereas with folk culture, we see these limited connections with local musicians of different genres. This is kind of an interesting map here. It shows us the cultural hearths and diffusion of American rap. So if I'm taking a look at this, I can see my areas where rap originated in the United States. So we've got the West Coast, our kind of Detroit area, East Coast, and then in the South. And then remember, the width of our arrows represents kind of the diffusion here and how widespread the diffusion was. So we can see that rap music has really diffused, obviously, all over the United States and even up into Canada. Vancouver has a pretty significant rap scene. So here's what we're going to do now. We are going to spend a little bit of time looking for elements of popular and folk culture in some different rap music videos. So go ahead and flip your page in your packet to our hip hop rap activity. We're going to explore some of the different elements of folk and pop culture through some different music videos. So we're going to start here by listening to a quick NPR segment that is going to introduce the artists that we are going to listen to today.
College campuses, dance clubs, go anywhere in the world today, and the music of youth is hip-hop. In Africa, the genre has inspired spirited debate about cultural identity. New albums by Dara J from Senegal and Explastas from Tanzania offer different interpretations of the music. Banning Air has this review.
Dara J called their international debut CD Boomerang, a reference to their contention that rap was born in Africa, grew up in America, and then turned around and went home. According to Dara J, rap itself derives from Senegalese traditions. For them, it's local music, so blending traditional instruments, vocal styles, and rhythms into their Senegalese hip-hop mix isn't diluting their culture with foreign influence, it's participating in a transatlantic musical dialogue that's been going on for centuries. On this track, they joined forces with Malian singer Rokia Traore, contrasting sweet melodiousness with gruff swagger. Even for anti-rap curmudgeons, the blend is hard to resist. Over in East Africa, hip-hop is also the order of the day. But there, the similarities end. Explastas comes from Arusha, Tanzania, an industrial city of loners who came from elsewhere looking for work. The music on Explastas' CD, Masai Hip Hop, is less foreigner-friendly than Dara J's sound, but the raps themselves offer a window into the chilling world of Tanzania's urban poor. Most African pop music has been about celebrating heritage and status quo, not critiquing and protesting. The spread of hip-hop has changed that. Explastaz's songs dramatize the dangerous lives of unskilled workers in crime-ridden neighborhoods and deliver straight talk about AIDS, child abuse, and other sensitive topics. This song warns against trusting false friends, and it incorporates a traditional Maasai lion hunting song. There's an interesting paradox about this band. Far from running away from roots, Explastaz is using hip-hop to promote traditional culture. The group's 2 Maasai members wear only the red robes and beadwork they would wear in the village, all part of a campaign to redefine cool for a culturally indifferent young generation. That high voice you hear is a Maasai song used to buck up the courage of teenage boys on the eve of circumcision. The rappers extend the idea into advice for survival in a threadbare African city. Unfortunately, the musical richness of Dara J and the back-to-roots philosophy of Explastaz are not typical of African hip-hop. But they show that this is not just a borrowed genre in Africa. It's adapting to and reflecting local realities. And like it or not, it's here to stay.
Our reviewer is Vanny Eyre, senior editor of Afropop.org. The albums are Boomerang by Dara J and Maasai Hip Hop by Explastaz.
Okay, now that we've had an introduction to the artists that we're going to be listening to today, here's what you're going to do next. You are going to work with your colleagues to first list 5 features that immediately pop into your mind when you think about the following cultures. When you think about U.S. culture, what do you automatically think of? When you think of African culture, what comes to mind? Once you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and do some basic Google research on Tanzania and Senegal, because that is where our 2 different rap artists are from. You're going to list your findings in the chart. So, in general, the geographic location of these 2 countries, the population sizes, primary religion practice, primary languages spoken, primary ethnic group or groups, what stage are they in the DTM, what is their fertility rate, what is their population growth rate, and the life expectancy. My guess is that you're probably not going to get too much further than here today. But if you do happen to get through this, then you can go ahead and you can move on. And you can start to watch the different music videos, and you're going to list evidence of popular and folk culture as you watch each of these cultural artifacts. So get as far as you can today. Again, you are going to be working with your colleagues. You will have time to wrap this up in class tomorrow, but I want you to try and get as much done as you possibly can today. If you have any questions, just write them down. We can talk about them tomorrow. Please use your time wisely and have a wonderful rest of your day.